Let's go now to Mukesh Kapıla, who's the former United Nations humanitarian coordinator for Sudan. He joins us now from Geneva. Really good to have you with us, Mukesh. As we heard earlier from the United Nations, they painted a very grim picture on many fronts in Sudan. They say the more than 4 months of fighting has affected the lives of millions, including the most vulnerable women and children. Explain to us what your view is on the humanitarian situation on the ground there right now.
I think the official figures are an underestimate. So apart from the displaced and the refugees, virtually everyone, 20 odd million people, are directly and indirectly affected by the violence, which is now all over the country. Obviously focused still on Khartoum and the Western Darfur states, but also in South, in the Kordofan region and elsewhere. That's the first thing. The second thing is that probably the numbers killed are greater than is recognized, and the problems of access of humanitarian assistance, and they need everything from food to healthcare to water to food for babies and anything you can think of. It's needed all over the country. So the situation is probably more dire than the official figures will have us believe.
Yes, I want to ask you about humanitarian access because we know that a long-standing truce has evaded the conflict so far, but there have been small windows of, I guess, a lull in the fighting in order to allow humanitarian access. Have they been successful or has that been limited in terms of its impact?
I think when it has been possible for humanitarian workers, largely local people, but also some courageous foreign aid workers, when they've been allowed to travel and they've been allowed to access parts of the country for small moments in time, obviously aid has got through, but it's too little and often it's too late. And clearly this is a kind of lottery of life and death, which is a very uncertain basis on which to move forward. That's why neighboring countries should open the borders more and allow people to escape. Whatever happens to Sudan in the future, at least let's keep as many as possible of the Sudanese people alive and well wherever they can find refuge.
You mentioned the situation in Western Darfur earlier, which is perhaps the most concerning at this point because we know that ethnic tensions and killings have resumed there just under 20 years after the end of the ethnic conflict in Darfur. But explain to us what's happening there and how is that linked to this power struggle between the army and the RSF?
Well, the ethnic killings in Darfur echo the methodology that I observed myself when I was UN coordinator in Sudan 20 years ago when the first Darfur genocide happened. And essentially speaking, it's the rapid support forces, which are very ethnically based, Arab-dominated militia, and they're targeting Black African groups. And so the aggressors of today are the descendants of the aggressors of 20 years ago, and the victims of today are the descendants of the victims of 20 years ago. So for all intents and purposes, these are genocidal killings that are taking place. And fundamentally, they revive a struggle that has been going on for a very, very long time, but is now becoming internationalized. So now, as also then, we've got similar ethnic Arab groups coming in from neighboring countries, from Chad, from Niger, and so on. And they are joining in the violence, thereby internationalizing it. And I think what will happen is that this is going to get worse and worse, in Darfur in particular, and that's going to inflame tensions all over the country and make the overall situation far more difficult to resolve than would be otherwise the case.
So in the meantime, the fighting has entered a 5th month. Mukesh Kapıla, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us. Appreciate it.